23-20. Los Angeles defeats Cincinnati. The Rams win their second ever Super Bowl. They win Super Bowl 56 once and for all. Sean McVay gets his title. Matthew Stafford gets his title. Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, the city of Los Angeles. This is the first time the Rams actually win in LA. So much fun things took place just a few minutes ago. And we have the best and the productive NFL crew to react to this Super Bowl right here, right now. So Bryan McKeon and Alex Ranniello, gentlemen, thank you for joining us as always. How are you guys doing?
Just living the dream. Great night.
Yes, sir. Rock and roll. Happy to be back.
Excellent. Love to hear it. So, guys, this is it. It all came down to a pretty good Super Bowl. Started off pretty tight head-to-head. It literally went down to the wire, and it led to a nice ending. And I think both teams still look strong, and it was just a really good game. Simple as that. So I guess to start it off, what are your initial thoughts after seeing the Rams win a Super Bowl? We'll start with Bryan, and then we'll go with Alex, and then we'll take the convo from there. What are your feelings right away, a few minutes after the Rams won the Super Bowl?
After that game, I'll say that after seeing, Aaron Donald and Matt Stafford and Woodworth up there on the podium, it's a good feeling. I'm happy for those guys. They really deserve that ring. The game definitely is not what I thought was going to happen. I thought it was more of a run game. So they went into passing and they had some issues and they overcame that. So, definitely would think that, they're doing good and, it's feels good. They deserve the win.
Can't complain.
I think overall, three phases of the game, I think the Rams were just the better team. Both teams came out of the gate pretty slow. They were kind of playing it safe, offense and defense. But as the second half came about, Cincinnati started to kind of take advantage of miscues and put Stafford on his heels. And it just took one big drive from the Rams to bring it back, and they capped it off. So I'm very happy for both teams. It was a competitive game, but congrats to the Rams.
Yeah, I feel at first the Rams were in control. They had as much momentum as you can want. Where Odell, before he got injured, was looking really good. Cooper Kupp, who is your MVP of this Super Bowl, was just stellar. And he's literally the MVP. He was the most valuable player. They were not going to win this game without him. And even at one point, it was throw the ball to Cooper. That's where it worked to their advantage. But then we saw, especially in the second half, that they were slipping up. You had the turnover going into the second half. You had just some miscues, as Alex mentioned. And there was a lead coming into it. And, there's only one score in the fourth quarter. And again, it was almost a flawless game. There's only 2 penalties going into the fourth quarter. Then he just had a bunch at once, especially in the end zone, which led to the final touchdown. And as I said before, both teams did look good coming into it, but the better team won. The team that was clearly expected to be in this position compared to the one that's not. So where do you think was the biggest mistake? Where did the biggest mistakes come from for Cincy? Where did this all go wrong for them? And then I think ultimately it's odd to say because it only took place in the last 5 minutes. This was the bad penalties where you saw some holdings, you said some pass interference, and you can't win with those penalty yards. And then, when you have a team with such stellar back and so many options, it was no surprise that they were able to score at the end. So I think Cincy's game management at the end killed them ultimately. What do you guys see Cincy's biggest flaw in Super Bowl 56?
Well, I agree with you. Definitely the discipline part of it, those penalties at the end. But we all knew all along that the offensive line was their worst unit. And having let up 7 sacks on Burrow, that's, in my eyes, why they lost. Once he got hurt with his knee, because, that he definitely had significant pain with that twist up on that sack on his knee. And we'll
Yeah.
probably find out he has some type of like a grade 2 like sprain or something like that he lost his mobility in already, needed need for mobility just because of that patchwork offensive line. So it just comes down to personnel and that they just didn't, that, their worst unit didn't play their best game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was under duress all night. I think he was a little more protected in the first half. The pocket started breaking down in the second half. He was getting a little more pressure, a lot of 4 and outs on both sides of the ball for the Rams and for the Cincinnati Bengals. But there was really their opportunity to cap on the lead when they had it, going up, by 7 points and then by 10 in the second half. And they didn't carry that momentum all the way to the finish line. And I think that was their undoing. I think the offensive line was definitely the biggest part of that, but all the miscues with the defensive pass interferences against Cup one-on-one on the final drive was really the nail in the coffin. I thought that it kind of just took a lot of the lifeblood out of them. Having, a 4.5-minute drive with 14 plays occur the way it did, it just took the last of the life out of Cincinnati for them. So I think you could boil it down to those few DPIs on the last play, but at the same time, I think you got to look at the totality of that offensive line not being able to protect Burrow in the second half.
Yes, I think that is clearly apparent there, and especially in the very last drive. But ultimately, I feel that this was the Hall of Famer and Aaron Donald having a signature play of his life. That close sack that ultimately thrown away and then led to the Super Bowl that could not have ended any better. So now that Cincinnati loses in this Cinderella story, where do we see the Bengals going now at this point? Where do you go? Do you clearly need to fix that line? Obviously, make that especially a priority in the draft. You now have a great duo in Chase and Burrow. What else can the Bengals do to try to get themselves back into this position a year from now?
Yeah, I think you nailed on the head, Matt. I think you just got to clean up that offensive line, maybe bring in a veteran that can kind of be a stalwart on the left side for Burrow to protect him on his blind side. But, that's what they did, bring in Hendrickson in the offseason, getting veteran guys to mesh with the rookies and the sophomores on that roster. But maybe, trying to draft another corner, just kind of bringing in guys that are more disciplined and more seasoned to kind of steady the tide with that roster. You got a lot of young guys, a lot of egos, a lot of big play guys that have ups and downs through the season. And right now that division's open for them. So I don't think the division moving forward is going to be much of a concern outside of Baltimore. But other than that, I think, getting guys who are buttoned up, maybe have years under their belt on the offensive line and at those corner positions is going to help them the most.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Couldn't agree more with Alex. I would just add they might want to look at trying to grab another linebacker in the middle, because I noticed in the game that they were getting Stafford was really hitting short and immediate routes and getting those first down conversions on them. I think they just need a little bit more speed in the interior of that linebacker core. Just to, cover those shifty, slots and stuff like that once they cross over and get past the cornerback. So maybe draft yourself, like a prototype kind of linebacker safety that he, like almost like a Jamal Adams kind of guy. That I could see them getting a guy like him would be very helpful for them on that. They need more dynamic players in the secondary and the linebacker core. So I would think that. And then offensive line, obviously that's their weakness. Everything else, though, honestly, they're good. Coaching's good. The skill positions are good. They just got to, keep on trying.
Yeah. And clearly you see in the best of the best, you really don't need anything added in the skills position for the Bengals. I mean, whether you could argue it was Ramsey having a really bad game or that Jamar Chase was able to beat the master almost, I think it's all on the non-skill position players going forward for Cincy. And I mean, if they could beat all the other teams in the AFC like they did and just lose by a field goal that could have gone either way, you have to be really happy if you're a Bengals fan. Right. And now looking at the Rams, I mean, Cooper Kupp, it's kind of crazy. He just short of 100 yards, but still 8 quality receptions, 2 touchdowns, the longest for 22 yards. And Odell was stellar even in his 2 receptions. And unfortunately, if they lost this game, that injury would probably be more apparent. They even get away with the botched field goal. And after all the players and personnel that I mentioned with all the Hall of Famers right before this segment, your Donalds, Ramseys, Whitworths, Staffords, all of that. Who you guys who do you think this win impacts the most in their career? Like who hits the apex after winning the Super Bowl, especially?
That's tough. Bryan, you want to take this one?
So I would say apex Aaron Donald, just because that's the last thing he needed. He had Pro Bowls, Old Pros, Defensive Player of the Year. We've known him as number 1 guy in the top 100, but not looking at apex most meaningful, I would say that would be Matthew Stafford, because that man was literally in Detroit for 13 seasons in pain, with losing season. And that win means a lot to him. When I think of the way I think about that, you think of Matt Stafford, you think of like Eli Manning, right? I think of Eli Manning without those 2 Super Bowls. It's a totally different outlook on his career. The Super Bowl for Matt Stafford, even though he played an okay game with those 2 interceptions, it's going to, in the long term, it's going to mean a lot. So I would say the most impactful, meaningful person is Stafford, and the apex of the career, Aaron Donald. If I was Aaron Donald, I'd retire right now. There's nothing else you need to do. You don't need to do anything else. You got every possible accolade for your position.
7 straight Pro Bowls, 7 straight All Pros, 3 Defensive Player of the Year, and you get the game-winning play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, all he's asking for is CTE now. So there's this retire, enjoy, go off into the sunset, have your ring, and you're the best interior defensive lineman in the history of the NFL.
I agree along some of the same lines. If I'm going to go apex, I'm actually going to go Whitworth, just because he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, been in the league. He's actually been on both sides of the ball in this game in particular. He had the most to achieve going out into his late 40s. So I'm going to go apex Whitworth. But in terms of meaningfulness, I'm actually going to go OBJ. And the reason being is that the one knock on him was never his talent, was never his heart and his soul and his effort. It was always, can he win and be a performer on the highest level on a winning team? And he showed that today. As much as we begrudge it, and myself included, I've always called him a baby, always called him a little immature, a little egotistical, but he suppressed a lot of that and was able to still give a little bit of leadership when he couldn't be out there in the second half. So I got to give it up to him to some degree for this game as well.
Yeah, Brody's, I'd have to say, for the apex out of everyone that I mentioned, and this would be real gun to my head for this one, but I would say Aaron Donald, if you complete the, like you said, the best pass rusher to ever do it. He earned that, and also just his Matthew Stafford's patience has rewarded him. And then also just the meaningful for Sean McVay. I mean, we have witnessed a guy that at only 36 years old, not only make 2 Super Bowls, but finally win over the hump. I think it would have been really bad if not only lose it to the greatest coach, and then you get there again with a much better team and you lose to your former assistant. That would be a hard pill to swallow. But after some people would argue that McVay really almost botched the NFC Championship. I think he had a well-played game today in coaching, even if it got conservative, even if the game somewhat got a little slow at first. He's playing slow and steady, and that ultimately led to a big touchdown in the 4th quarter, and then stopping them once and for all because they were just about to be in field goal range. But don't forget also the play before with the backup running back in Perrine, who Aaron Donald stops right at the 1. And then, this could be a mistake. Zach Taylor, if they went for the plus 55-yard field goal, didn't go for 4th, and they ultimately stop him. And now Sean McVay the guru will always have that bragging rights. And now at this point, it's only about winning multiple for him. So, yeah, I mean, it's really all to take in with this game, seeing where the Rams are going now. I guess the also other thing now is, what do you do if you're the Rams? You got everybody you can get with this, and it did work. It ultimately worked, and you won a Super Bowl in your own building. What do you do now? Do you try to make it a challenge? I have to let all these vets go and see if we can make a push again, or do we say let's try to do what the Bucks did, bring everyone back, only this time make it farther than the divisional round? What do you think the Rams do at this point?
I think at this point, just based on contracts, I think if a couple of, veterans in key positions leave, they have to, honestly fortify that, but start to really look at your weaknesses. They really don't have a big name middle linebacker. And I think that comes up a lot when you see that their defense does get run on a lot. And that was my fear against Bengals with Mixon. They get, he towards the end of the game, he was starting to get, 10-yard clips once he gets past that first defensive line. And it just shows me that they really need a true, like Bobby Wagner, like north and south kind of linebacker, not more of a skill guy like Von Miller, because they have that, but Leonard Floyd and they need to find a true, run defending linebacker. And I also think safety is an issue for them, as you see Eric Weddle had to come out with injuries and everything like that. Yeah. And those contracts. And you got to remember, like Taylor Rapp's contract, and the guy Johnson's contract with safeties are coming up in like a year or two. It's either this year or the next. So, you got to keep on thinking about that. They're going to be cap tied with Stafford, with Ramsey. Cup's going to have a contract renewal. You know what I mean? Robert Woods is up. You have to think of, should I go with Robert Woods or OBJ? Me personally, I think OBJ just tore his ACL again this game, just based on the way he went down. Most likely, I'd probably go with Robert Woods because it's going to be less of recovery time and it's going to be more, consistent play.
More with the roster too, because he's played with Cup for a few years now. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Exactly. No, I know you agree 100%. You got Van Jefferson coming up. Tigby's good because he's low price and he's good. He's a poor man's tight end. So like it's just realizing those things now. What is a value? What isn't a value? Who could I find for a bargain? You know what I mean? They might look for a guy that's going to be injured because they know how good they could carry themselves, that they could get for cheap this offseason that may have gotten hurt to then bring in the second half of the season. So we just got to see what happens.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Brian. I think they're going to have to look middle linebacker, someone who's really a stalwart in the middle, who has the foot speed to get up, behind the front four, during the rushing attack, or be able to drop back in coverage at a moment's notice. But I think they're going to have to also more importantly look at who they're going to replace with Whitworth if he decides to walk away. And even if he doesn't, start grooming him to be that successor to what Whitworth was on that roster. There's big shoes to fill, but that's the most precious position on the front line for Stafford's protection. So
couldn't say it any better, guys. Couldn't say it any better. Just two quick questions before we sign off. One, what'd you think of the halftime show? I thought it was underwhelming. I thought there was too much going at once. You had performers who can have their own halftime show, but regardless, I still love the music and the vibes and seeing all these legendary hip hop people together. I think it was good, but I was hoping for more. And I personally think the sunlight aspect didn't help a show like that. It would have been cooler in the dark.
Agree with you. Agree with you 100%. I don't even need to say anything. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Till next time with that. Yeah. What you're saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, it was busy. It was chaotic on the field. I did like the construction of having almost like that cityscape kind of like boxcar daisy chain presentation to how the different performers had their own little set within the larger set. I thought it was pretty creative, but again, I never really expect much from the performances. It's such a short window of time, and when you have 5-6 performers in that window, you're only getting about a song and a half, if not half a song, to perform. I thought artistically, I thought it was a great, pretty cool idea of having that presentation set upon the city grid for LA. But yeah, it was a little chaotic, and it would have definitely looked a lot cooler if the lights were dropped and it was darker outside and the ambiance was a little different. But they did the best they could. I mean, they're 3 hours ahead of time with us, so you make with the best you got.
Right. And then my last question: how'd you guys feel about the commercials? I thought they were fine. My favorite one was the Sopranos driving through Jersey because I know too much about that. And I like the Joneses, Tommy Lee Jones Toyota commercial, Rashida Jones, Leslie Jones, Jonas. Very funny joke that they put there. So commercials, solid B- from me this year. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll give it a B. I like the Sopranos one. I like the NFL one for Madden where they came out of the TV. It reminded me of the NFL Century commercial that they had with all
Best
the
coach
legends. Yeah, you remember that one where they were running through like the dining area? So it reminded me of that. That was pretty cool. The Scarlett Johansson one was pretty good. Yeah, it just felt I don't know, it felt average. I'll be honest. Even with the Super Bowl, even this Super Bowl felt average too. I don't know what it was. I think it was just overhyped. I was expecting like a gun show just with the two arms of the quarterback. So I feel like the overall Super Bowl was just for a Hollywood atmosphere. It felt very, very not action packed. I expected some, craziness going on. I expected both quarterbacks to have 350 plus passing yards, and everyone going off for 100-yard clips. I think it's almost it just felt average. It's like a pullback from the Pat Mahomes Buccaneers kind of crazy Super Bowl and said this is what usually happens.
Right.
Yeah, if you bet the over under, which was 49, you would have won, and they only scored 43. So
yeah. I think both offenses, when we look at it in the rearview mirror, I think they were a little gun shy, a little hesitant all night. I think it was a little lackluster compared to the shootout we've always been accustomed to in years past in the NFL. I'll definitely agree with Bryan and to you, Matt, to some extent. I think the commercials were definitely subpar this year. They took a little L in terms of the writing crew that they had in these offices and these departments. I think that they had some cool kind of impositions to how they structured the commercials. Like I thought it was kind of cool, like some of the narratives and storylines that they developed, but definitely not this kind of humor that we're accustomed to in past. I remember last year, just right off the top of my head, like there were some really good EV car commercials. There was a really good Doritos commercial. There was a good Rocket Mortgage commercial last year. There was some really memorable moments. The Bud Light callback commercial where they had like the greatest hits from years past. I think there was a lot of good ones that stuck out in my mind last year that I was kind of longing for, and I didn't get it this year. But at least the game was close. That was good enough for me. Again, I didn't have a dog in the fight, so I just wanted to keep it close.
Yeah, and that's that's the big winner today. Will this be known as one of the greatest Super Bowls ever played? Not necessarily, but for a solid battle between two good teams, and I think it's fair that the best team won. There's nothing better that can beat that. But with that, short and sweet, react to the Super with you guys as we close off this NFL postseason, which was nothing but a pleasure, and also with Tommy, while he's doing his thing in college. So I just wanted to give you guys a lot of praise and thank you for helping me and showing the audience your talents. And let's keep doing it again. There's a draft coming up and then a whole off season, and we'll keep this journey going as we are on our way to the top of this podcasting world.
Yes, sir.
So I'll let any final words if anyone has anything.
Yeah, Matt, you did a great job this season. Definitely a lot of ups and downs with the different storylines, the different, changes in the schedule and the irregularities, but steadied the ship, my man. And it was a great season to review some football. I had a great time and look forward to next season.
Thank you very much, Alex. That means a lot. I couldn't do it without you. Anything from you, Bryan?
As my first time ever being on a podcast, meeting you in a Yankee game all the way in August, me and you having thrown a few beers back, I have to say I did not expect this, and I absolutely enjoyed every moment of it. I thank you so much. for showing me that I actually do have somewhat of a good time and talent doing this. I really enjoy that. And, I've always had a passion for football, not playing anymore. And now being able to talk about it, I feel that void getting filled in a little bit. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime, Bryan. You have so much potential, as does Alex. So it's pretty easy. So let's keep this ball rolling. So that's it, folks. 2021 NFL season comes to a close with the Los Angeles Rams winning their second Super Bowl. So on to the next one. A year from now, Arizona, Super Bowl 57. We'll start their journey right now. So let's keep it going. Alex, Ranniello, Bryan, McKeon, love you guys. And thank you so much for
Thank you, brother.
this amazing experience. All right. We'll see you guys soon.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
Signing off.